This is the preview stream for Order of Battle Allies Defiant DLC. Again, the first mission of these are always free. This one is set in, well, this whole DLC, and I have not played it, but I have read the description, is basically set during the time period, much of it at least, Britain alone, not all of it, because obviously we're starting in Norway. Hey, Van Bishop. And the Norwegian campaign had large ramifications for the war heading that's just starting out here. But as Germany launched a large amphibious operation to occupy Norway, the British ground forces are tasked to recapture Trondheim before the main German invasion force can link up in isolated Wehrmacht positions. Okay. Let this load in. Start briefing. Mission awaits. Okay, good morning, sir. Now that is, I believe, a picture of Auchinleck, which we see more of in North Africa, famously. Good morning, sir. While the Western Front is mostly static due to the phony war, we have established a naval blockade of Germany, as control of Norway is crucial for access to the Swedish iron ore. The Germans reacted with a full-scale invasion of both Denmark and Norway on April 9th. Wehrmacht troops swiftly seized key locations, including major seaport of Trondheim, right here. As expected, the Germans did not lose any time to expand their perimeter around the city. London had already made plans to react to the German move against Norway. I'll get into more of that in a moment while playing. Since the occupation of this country would also enable the enemy to sustain far-reaching naval operations from Norwegian air bases, consequently, we have now established bridgeheads at Andalnes and Namsos, which are at the German flanks. Your primary goal is to recapture Trondheim. This would allow us to block further German advances at the narrow part of Norway, but be prepared to fend off German relief forces coming from the south down here, from Lillehammer. This is the first land contact between our troops and the Wehrmacht units in this bloody war, so good luck, Commander. That's true for the British. The French had earlier contact in the Saar offensive. The Royal Navy warships will be dispatched for support as soon as possible to deal with the Kriegsmarine vessels in the Trondheim fjord, I should say. Okay, so our goal, primary, capture Trondheim, destroy units attacking from Lillehammer, 6 of them, prevent enemy buildup near Trondheim. Secondary, don't know exactly what that means. Sink, I do understand this, sink the cruiser Admiral Hipper. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, and I know it's not much, but let's just load in a setup. I have played, like I often do, the first 2 or maybe 3 turns, but beyond that, I haven't played this. So I don't know how difficult this scenario is going to be. I'm expecting German air supremacy, just because that's what very much was happening historically. So what I have done is up here, bought a small British force, 2 infantry, some artillery. I spend the money for the trucks. You want to be able to move your artillery. I might be able to get away with just the horse-drawn versions. And there was a starting element here of British infantry, but I've added a Matilda. If you're going to go tanks, go big, and some more anti-aircraft to be able to deal with German aircraft in some fashion. Okay, so done with the deployment phase now. Now, Norway is an interesting case, and with all of these games, I'm very interested in the histories relating to them, because that is why I want to play them. Sure, you have the, if you will, game challenge of simply, you know, defeating the opponent, but it's the historical aspects that get me excited about these. Now, in my opinion, the only real reason Britain and France were able to do this, react as quickly as they did, is there were already plans afoot. They mostly go back to looking at the Winter War a bit earlier. This is now a bit more into spring here. We're going to make sure we get the Matilda, which is a bit slow, up fully as forward as possible. Our infantry up. And I just want to get him on. We wrote a bit faster movement there. And the Winter War, a lot of British leaders wanted to get involved in it, particularly Churchill, who had become First Lord of the Admiralty, not yet Prime Minister at that point, or at the point of this battle either. He's still First Lord of the Admiralty, the civilian, and sort of like in the U.S. term, Secretary of the Navy. Because the Soviet Union, which was in alliance with Nazi Germany, was attacking Finland. Now, the alliance wasn't a deep, or thought to be a deep or long-lasting alliance, meaning it's based upon ideology or strategic similar goals. They're not deep, but it is definitely a military alliance because of the joint invasion of Poland. And so sort of the enemy of, let's see, what's that? The ally of my enemy's enemy must be my friend, kind of thought is why they wanted to get into the Winter War, with the idea of maybe sending a couple of British divisions up there. Okay, the Royal Navy Naval Group has arrived to aid your operations, as the Germans cannot afford to ignore the aggressive moves towards Trondheim and the fjord. You may be able to lure the Kriegsmarine ships into battle so that the German forces near Trondheim are left without naval fire support. Yes, naval gunfire support may be very, very critical here. This is a reconnaissance aircraft, so there is, I don't think, defense, but no attack against naval forces, so we're just going to use him. Worried a bit about submarines possibly out there. Norway. Yes, and then Bishop is already saying. Yes, combined scenario. We're seeing, hello, PS. We're seeing French, British, Norwegian troops, and the Royal Navy operating here. Okay, we have some fire, or fighter cover, I should say, here. But that's not going to do us a lot of good against the German destroyer type 34 or 1934. One thing I really do like about Order of Battle, now we could theoretically, but they're not close enough to launch torpedoes at them, so just gunfire, is its combined arms aspect. In some of the scenarios you will see, like the Pacific scenarios, very much of a naval operation. I guess we're going to move the fighters here as carrier fighters as air cover for them. All right. So we have some air cover there. We're going to move you to here. That way we just clear the road. But we can fight. Now the Winter War is over by before the Allies can effectively respond. Norway does allow, sort of breaks its neutrality, if you will. This is better to start with, at least, by allowing primarily the British to send aircraft and other military supplies. I'm actually glad they didn't retreat because I can hammer them again. Okay, good. No, we're not going to occupy that just yet this turn. Send supplies, fighters and such to Finland during the Winter War. But it ends, and so not a whole lot happens at that point. The British are very aware. Did I? Yeah. Thought I did. How are we gonna do this? Okay. Driver tanks, and they get a little support from the Norwegian infantry. Good. I'm not going to advance those because I want to see about pushing. Yes, we're going to push into here. We're going to push into here. That way we have a flanking attack, yeah, so that is better. It's nice to fully eliminate units, but this is a bit more of a dangerous unit here. And if we can take it out, or mostly out, we can get these objectives. Let's move you there because we'll get air cover for these guys still in trucks that I think are only able to head pennant numbers rather than names. This is Frederick Eckholt. I don't know enough about German naval operations and German Navy. I definitely understand from actually playing War Thunder that the types are definitely like based on years, at least for one convention. So I don't know. Yes. Could be. Quite honestly, I'll just admit that I don't know. Okay, now I want to see if I can purchase a tactical naval bomber. We're going to do swordfish with torpedoes, I think. Why isn't it just it? Oh, I guess because we have to just launch the torpedo instead of naval bomb. I can still do ground. No, I can't. More flex. No, I just want to do because of the later use of those as torpedo bombers. So we're going to get some torpedo bombers to do aggressive, because I want to take out that Admiral Hipper as the bonus objective. Though bombing some of the fortification guns would be nice. Not a bad idea. We did shoot at him, the fighter. Yes, okay. And so, like I say, the Winter War is over. I could have used you as some sort of occupation. Oh, actually, you've survived. Wow. Oh, and you pushed up now. To get killed. Why? I could have used you as auxiliary occupation. I think that's the Admiral Hipper there. I don't doesn't tell me. And like we can see, they can do pretty wicked offshore bombardments. They're going up around me. You can deal with that. At least they're close enough to use torpedoes. I don't know how effective that's going to be, but whether it sinks them outright or just does significant damage. Okay. So they're being the fighters, or Stukas I should say, are being shot up. And Churchill, being the First Lord of the Admiralty, wants to take action against the Germans. And they know very much that German, Swedish steel ore, or Swedish steel, I should say, is being shipped out via Narvik in Norway and down the Norwegian coast to Germany. And they want to stop that. And Churchill wants to no, we don't want to go along the rail. Wants to provoke a German response. So he sets up to have the he wants to set up to have naval mines placed in Norwegian waters to, I'm trying to think here, let's see if we remove the anti-tank guns there. I'll have you walk across there. Yeah, we'll be bold this turn to keep you guys in trucks. To want to provoke the Germans, they also want to force the ore convoys out to sea so that the Royal Navy can attack them directly. And the French wouldn't be too upset with the idea that if the Germans were to invade Norway, they could also, along with the British, send a battle force up to fight them in Norway, in trying to draw them away from fighting within France. So they're sort of on board with the whole, I don't want to move you up entirely unprotected, so we'll come to here. Not as big an impact as I was hoping. Okay, I want to take it down entirely. Germans did lose a bunch of destroyers during this campaign. No. Basically, at the end of the war, the Germans are in occupation of Norway. The U.S. that's jumping way ahead. Obviously, we all know, ultimately, I don't know exactly how this campaign theoretically turns out because of the way the Allies there, but we know that ultimately the Allies withdraw from Norway. At the end of the war, the Germans are in possession of Norway. There's at least one panzer division, though it's not a good panzer division, is up in Norway. I always block on names. Terboven. Terboven is the sort of Reichskommissar or whatever for Norway. He blows himself up sitting on a bunch of, I don't know, dynamite or other explosives in the building instead of surrender. Yeah, it's they're there. It's sort of messy into the end. Let's move up. Oh, that's the. Oh, here's the fighters. Yeah, we'll sort of keep you here. Worried about Luftwaffe bombers a bit. So that's how it sort of ends for the situation in Norway. But, and so the British and the French are very much contemplating aggressive action in Norway. Want to expose. I knew there was somebody going to be there. The town. And so they're you know, getting prepared to. Okay, that's looking a little better odds. They've already withdrawn. Well, good. Okay. Yeah. It would be these guys that we want to push. Let's keep pushing while the pushing is good. And so the Allies are actively making preparations, actively like getting the French mountain troops ready to deploy to Norway. And then the Altmark, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, incident happens, in which there is a Kriegsmarine operated vessel, but it's a transport of some sort. It's carrying a bunch of, I believe, imprisoned British sailors on it in Norwegian waters down the Norwegian coast back to Germany. Though that's violating Norwegian sovereignty, it's violating Norwegian neutrality already. And then the British decide to, well, yeah, we're going to go get our people back. So they go back in and capture the ship and liberate the prisoners. And that, of course, is violating Norwegian territoriality and neutrality. So that pushes ahead German plans for Norway. Prior to the Altmark incident, Gross Admiral Raeder wants Norway as to operate bases from. He wants Norway. So he arranges two meetings ultimately between the former defense minister of Norway, Vidkun Quisling, and Hitler. And Quisling has wants some sort of Norwegian-German alliance. Quisling, I would say, is a super nationalist, shall we say, a right-wing super nationalist, we might say. And so he thinks he can get an alliance with Germany. Now, Quisling's biggest nemesis becomes the aforementioned Terboven later on, because Terboven and particularly Himmler wants to organize Norway into the Greater German Reich, Nordic, whatever, you know, their whole BS super race stuff. And so there's this ongoing conflict between Quisling and Terboven, particularly because Terboven is, again, an ultra-nationalist for Norway, who is afraid of groups like, you know, the Soviet Union and Bolshevism, and afraid that democracy is going to be too weak to stand up against it and all that kind of stuff. So he wants to get on board with Hitler, but he wants Norway to be an independent nation, entirely independent, but just allied with Nazi Germany, where Nazi Germany wants to, or factions, particularly within Nazi Germany, wants to organize it into the Reich. But so Quisling's name becomes, of course, synonymous with traitor, because as the former foreign minister, he stages a coup in the early days of German occupation of Norway. That is, well, as a coup, it's sort of acknowledged briefly by some elements within Norway while the Germans are invading, and then he actually resigns from that after a moment, or after a few days. But fortunately, this fortress looks like it's going to hold out a bit, maybe until we can push down there somewhat. Report them. Uh-oh, bomber showing up. Okay. But good, we have some AA to at least mess with them somewhat, though not terribly effective there. Sorry for the background noise. Whoa. Well, okay, we still have range there. We have range there, but do we even need to or want to use the shot? No, we don't. We'll think about our movement plans. Okay, they're doing well. Okay, so we've taken out 2 units here. We're going to move these guys into the hills where they should be a little better defended. Well, we're going to see... Well, yeah, let's... These guys to here. Okay, we have some Gebirgsjägers here. I think we did the right thing. Yeah, we can afford that now. Move up our artillery. Move up the anti-aircraft. We can cover the artillery to at least some degree of AA protection. Yeah, Quisling was the second most common target of Allied propaganda. Yeah, oh yeah, oh he, I mean Quisling, a Quisling, you know, in general English, you know, is like, to mean a traitor, is common usage now. It may be falling off more and more nowadays, but, okay, we're going to stage some destroyers out around here. We can, if we don't want to move, we can hit the sonar to look around for subs. I just don't want to lose any of the major vessels to a submarine attack. Like there. Okay. I think we'll just... Yeah. We can move up a bit. And sink the submarine, very good. That worked out. Okay, this is a reconnaissance plane, so I think it has unlimited range. But we'll use it looking for surface vessels that are out and about. We know there's at least a destroyer and what looks to be a cruiser in up the fjord. Hey Scooter, good to have you here. Yeah, so things with, you know, there's no Germans south of this, or presumably so. I guess there could be parachutists or something, but, so there was a fifth column in Norway. The head of the army at the time gets fired for defeatism, shall we say. Okay, let's see if we can move to these hills here and overlook the road and block road access. And let's put some anti-tank guns a bit in support there. We'll deal about the Lilyhammer stuff later on. I want to push us on our primary objective of Trondheim. At least that's what I think I should be doing here. New talk. Oh, the expansion coming out. Oh, 40k. Yeah, I don't know about that. Coming out. Yes, they did. Yes. That was probably my first hearing about Lilyhammer, quite honestly. It's a little ways south from here, according to this map, but it's sort of mountainous central Norway. We have the fighter. Ooh, they'll come up and escort the reconnaissance aircraft. Remember, Germany did not have carriers, but they did have, well, they had the long-range Condor bombers and other sort of float plane type bombers that could be launched from sea bases, and of course all kinds of other German bombers, Stukas and others that could be bombing our fleet. So we're somewhat protected, though, I think, at the moment. And so it's almost getting down to the point that even before the German invasion, the Allies are thinking of invading Norway, hoping it's going to be more like a friendly occupation and not a resisted invasion. I think that's maybe a bit optimistic, that they think the Norwegians will just go, yeah, you're here, good, you'll help defend us against the German invasion. But that's what I think their thinking was, basically. And there's a lot of debate within the hierarchy of whether they should do it, whether it comes down to propaganda reasons or simply military capability reasons. Continue to push. Okay, we'll come this way, I think. We will... Okay, you fire, so you can't move. Okay, from here they can still do that and support these guys. Shoot up the bombers a lot more. Yeah, I'll risk one more because I have the points to reinforce if they attack us and not destroy the artillery unit. Now, okay. We're gonna ping. Okay, nothing apparently in that area. They can't move because they spent that time. That's basically because to get a return back and understand what's going on, you gotta move slowly, where this is destroyers dashing about. And we did conveniently run into the other submarine. We're going to come and escort our torpedo bomber, which is more important than our reconnaissance aircraft. Okay. Just sort of seeing these surface vessels up there. The theater was definitely a sideshow. For the most part, the Germans did use it to stage some strikes during the Battle of Britain and interdict convoys headed to Russia. You know, of course, it wasn't the central thing. Yes, there is the Swedish steel, and I guess we don't even really know what it was nowadays, but it's thought to have had a natural, from up near the Narvik area, up there in Sweden, had a natural tungsten in the iron ore that they were using to make the steel. A natural tungsten intermixing with it, meaning it's an alloy naturally, which to a point all steel is, because steel is a mixture of iron and carbon. But and so it was particularly good steel, long since played out, the mines, but it was producing some really good stuff that was critical for German war industry. And so that keeps Germany going considerably, because Germany does have a steel limitation issue, absolutely. But a lot of the steel that they're cranking out might be good to make, say, trigger guards on rifles and butt plates on rifles, but not necessarily the critical elements of machine tools or the critical elements of rifle barrels, or particularly like artillery barrels or other high quality needs steel. You can make high quality needs steel without the Swedish steel, but that's a critical level of it, meaning that they're going to drop it down. So they can make a lot of shall we, and I don't mean junk as in bad, but just sort of standard steel. It's the high quality stuff there. There's a serious limitation for Germany. Partially because they have a very significant limitation on tungsten, which again they are doing tungsten steel alloys themselves, but that's limited by their tungsten availability. Okay, well, now here's the thing, and sideshow, and Churchill. I don't know how much, if at all, Churchill read Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese military theorist. But Churchill, I know, read, and I think wrote but read a lot about British warfare, and particularly the Peninsula Wars, during the Napoleonic Wars. So Churchill was very familiar with British strategies and the indirect approach, meaning not, like in the Napoleonic era, not driving straight to Paris with the British Army, is to fight on the periphery to weaken them. And you can see this very much and using naval power to launch and do so. You can see this with Churchill during World War I in the Dardanelles campaign. And there are good reasons why it went wrong, even though it was a very good idea. It is forewarning and whatnot that the Turks got. But it ended up not being handled well and tarnished Churchill's reputation. But Churchill likes these types of operations, the indirect approach. Now, mentioning invading Norway later on. So, why? Why? Later on. I'm talking, like D-Day and whatnot. Well, you've already got a huge German fortification operation that goes on. Germany, organization Todt and other German organizations, the Reich Arbeitsdienst and others, are fortifying the hell out of Norway. spending lots and lots of effort on building, fortifications, not, well, in certain locations to the scale of what we see, down in Normandy and off Calais, again, certain targeted areas to that scale, but fortifications of that type all along the Norwegian coast. It's a huge coast. You can't do it, like they did at Calais or whatever, all the way along it. And like I said, there was at least one panzer division, second-rate panzer division with a lot of older tanks that get upgraded and whatnot. But other divisions sitting in Norway, basically trapped there during and after D-Day. So instead of wasting your troops and actively invading Norway and fighting for, yes, it would make a great air base to get closer and bomb the heart of the Reich. Absolutely. And, if you couldn't do a D-Day in 1944, I would consider a Norwegian operation instead. And I know mentioned like 43, but 43 we're looking at taking out Italy and getting ready for Norway, which would only delay and let the Germans know how effective you can be in naval operations. You don't want to give that away. The idea of the mulberry harbors and all those other abilities to build artificial ports and come ashore. You don't want to give all that away, so you want to keep them in somewhat ignorance. So there are reasons to attack in 43 or 44. But if it's going to delay your main D-Day operation or give too much away for the D-Day operation, no, it is better, I think, to keep Norway as a feint. Make them worried that you're going to land there. Make them think that it's maybe really going to happen. So they've got to honor the threat. And so that way with, like you saw Patton with his phony army in, off of Calais, doing all kinds of radio messages and fake tanks and all that stuff, you do similar sorts of fake operations up in Scotland and wherever, making the Germans think that, hey, actually they've got a couple of corps ready to invade possibly Norway. We've got to, prepare it, without having corps there that are, getting ready to do other things. No sense in fighting the Germans on terrain. Yeah, and they can do that. You can do it heavily favors the defense, but. And I don't know, again, we can see like fortifications here that block all this off. But because it is such isolated, it also favors the attack in the sense of quick naval moving of troops. So if the fortifications limit that too much, it's good and it's bad. It's good and it's bad for attacking and defending. At least that's how I'm evaluating it. But to get back to 1940, before all of that happens, I think what units haven't we moved? Okay, those guys are just hanging out. Those guys are hanging out there. These guys, yeah, we'll come over the hill. Yes, I have unmoved units. Maybe a little more of a hit than I wanted from the artillery and the naval. Maybe I'm pressing too hard against the naval forces there. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. I shouldn't have moved the artillery up so fast. Move to the hill. We'll spend the 25 and get that up there. Now, who do we want to shoot? Who can we shoot? They realize their air base is in danger. Doing this attack here first so that we can move out of the way, and oh, we spotted some mines. Let's move you up. Oh, we don't have an undo button in this game. That's one thing I really don't like about this game. I mean, I get like after combat results, you might not just want to have them, oh, undo, don't like that, you know, because they're already sort of telling us the likely odds. There is a dice roll element. After that, okay, well, you just lost your artillery. Yeah, we will push on these guys from the hill, shooting down the valley. Well, they're about ready to be cut off over here, so we'll see how they react to all of that. The artillery is covered by our anti-air, and well, let's use our heavy tanks as reconnaissance. We sort of kind of have that line, I guess. Have they lost any airbase that they could use? Their aircraft will operate for a while without fuel, but that could be interesting. Okay.